We know 9 o'clock is tough if there's an evening reception, but we have a dense program and we had to start at 9. And this is one of the most interesting parts of our whole festival, because we'll be talking about future emissions. Emissions in regions where there's a lot of economic growth, population growth, urbanization ongoing, and it's very much in the core focus of our work as FCA and in the focus of our partners from UNIDO and UNIDO ITPO Germany. My name is Peter Schniering. I'm the founder of FCA. Welcome everyone. With me here is Michael Schmidt, who is one of the coordinators and what's your official title? Heads and yeah, deputy head of UNIDO ITPO Germany. I'll give the word to him to introduce this excellent panel of entrepreneurs, of experts from heavy emission industries who have traveled a long way to get here, which we appreciate so much. I cannot stress this enough. And I would just like to add that we will be passing around for you as a preparation. We've done this as a service, so to say, fact sheets. You've seen some of them yesterday already. Some of the colleagues from Africa have already agreed yesterday that we continue collaborating on them. They're giving their opinions. One is on cement, one is on hydrogen. And the idea is always, I can't present it here as we did in the opening ceremony yesterday, but it will always show you at a glance why the sector matters so much and what we need to do about it. And what we will do with your statements today, gentlemen, with the ideas you have, with the points you want to make, is we'll carry this way beyond this session, be it online or in person today, but we will create key summaries and takeaways. And with this, thank you again, especially also to Michael, Vanessa, Jessica, everybody involved for the great job you've done in compiling this. Michael.
Okay, thank you, Peter. It's a great pleasure to open this session. We'll keep it very short because we have little time, and we really appreciate that these high-level speakers made it all the way, despite of all the obstacles on the way. Consulates, printers in the consulates not working, airport staff not delivering luggage. So it's a long journey, but it's worth it, I hope, because this is a great event to galvanize some of our activities, but also, as Peter says, I think part of a dialogue of an ongoing activities, maybe only the kickoff of some activities in this field. For us as UNIDO Investment Technology Promotion Office Germany, this is important because we're trying to bridge some gaps that exist, we see in our daily work, and that's trying to bridge the gap between innovation, research and development, which is the focus of FCA's activities and many other partners here and of the event, and industry. So industry, we mean not just the research and development, but the operations of the industry. And we need to move closer to synchronize these two worlds. So this is one gap. These two worlds need to work together, and we cannot wait, as we always heard. So we have to involve the industry and industry representatives. Another gap is that what you heard yesterday from Carlos from Club of Rome. We have to think holistically to involve, this climate challenge is a global issue. So we're very glad to have representatives from emerging markets, growing markets. This is where we will need most of the cement. This is where the steel plants need to be built. This is where we need to find energy solutions that are sustainable. And maybe the last point, which is probably addressed particularly to NJ Ayuk, also the old infrastructure and the old industries, if you call it, the fossil fueled industries, oil and gas, they are difficult, but they are there, and there's a need and a right to develop them because wealth is important, needs to be spread equally on this globe. And we should use the infrastructure and the synergies and the know-how that is available in these traditional sectors to move forward on this energy transition. So this is why it's very exciting to have all these people together. And I'll pass on to Ibrahim Muritala, who will moderate the session, and he will introduce the speakers. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
So thank you. Good morning, everyone. I know it has been a lot of activities for every one of us. So to start our discussion, I will first call on the keynote speaker in person of NJ Ayuk. He's the executive chairman of Africa Energy Chamber. So you're welcome. Second is I am Fathy. He's from the steel industry in Egypt. He's the product development and quality control executive manager. Then I will also quickly go down to call on Hazem Moshir. He's the energy manager at Arabian Cement Company. Then last but not the least, because we should be 5 people on this panel, so I'll be calling on Mr. Daniel Adekokun, the head of Geocycle of Lafarge Africa PLC from Nigeria. So you're welcome, everyone. And I think it's important we go to the business of today, because we are talking about the heavy industry in emerging markets, the emerging economy, and we know Africa share a lot of this. To start with a keynote discussion, I would really direct this to NJ Ayuk, because you've done a lot in the energy sector in Africa with a lot of organization, and I think you also do a lot of policy discussion and things like that in the context of the generality of the African continent. So just give us your keynote on the scope of the landscape of the energy sector, as well as other heavy industry that are, let me say, active in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me? Thank you so much. I think I was scared when they told me I had to come to FCA, and Michael kept hunting me down. And then I told Michael that if I have to come, you have to promise me a bratwurst with Senft. But I think he has not yet kept that promise. So I had to walk around in the back and get myself bratwurst. I got myself Senft and a schnitzel, and I had a Schwarzbier. So I feel at home. I feel in Germany, my real home. So thank you so much for having me. But as we start this discussion, it is always great to be here on the first day and really listen to a lot of great things. And there's one thing we should start this morning is we should take a minute and let's just put our hands together for the great panels and the great discussions we had yesterday. And we thank you guys so much for it. I come from a continent where you have 600 million people without any access to electricity. 900 million without any access to clean cooking technologies. 11 countries across my continent, Africa, use 90% have less than 10% electrification. 9 countries use less electricity than the state of Alabama. 9 countries use less electricity than the state of Alabama in the United States. Our total electricity generation of 164 gigawatt, it's way less than the country of Belgium. A kettle in the United Kingdom, boiled twice a day, uses more electricity than an African family in a year. A Tanzanian woman gets less. That's our reality. And that is where we stand. And how do we leapfrog from that in a continent where 75% of the population is under 25, more young people? The future, as we all heard yesterday, and we're discussing here comes from where we're looking at it saying, how do we drive that sustainable future? Is it getting us and getting our young people to choose a path that says you have to cross the Mediterranean or the Sahara to find greener pastures in Europe, or you have to go crossing borders not knowing what that future is? One of my greatest heroes going through law school was Martin King Jr. He taught us that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Our climate is just as important to everybody, whether it's in Africa or in the United States or in Europe or in Asia. While Africa has contributed less than 3% greenhouse gas emissions, we all in this together. I don't think I want to sit here and say, you have done more than we have, so we should do this. That's past. We are on the same boat. It doesn't matter what boat you got here. But we have to figure out to find those solutions. Solutions that are going to drive the future. Solutions that are going to really look and give that young girl in the Gambia who was supposed to have a shot at life during COVID because somebody gave them ventilators, but they just couldn't get it because you don't have a shot at electricity in providing that. And that's real. That's our reality. I was listening to all the nice presentations, and I missed Carlos this morning, but I love the guy. But one of the things we have to pay attention is we can't talk about a future without industries here that are really going to drive growth. I sit on the OPEC Technical Advisory Committee. We're looking at more growth is going to come from emerging markets. And those emerging markets are going to grow in population. We're looking at a continent that's going to be 2 billion by 2050. So you're seeing more people, more chances to emit more. Heavy industries are going to drive. How do we build that? And I think sometimes we got to change our mindset a little bit. Energy security, energy stability, it's key. But what are those pragmatic, common sense solutions that we drive it? I think it's a big debate right now where we have our colleagues in Western countries telling us, gas, you can't even use gas anymore. Forget it, it's over. And if we don't change our mindset, Sharm el-Sheikh is going to be a failure. I just came from Egypt last week. Sharm el-Sheikh is going to be a failure because it's going to be very difficult for people in emerging countries to say you cannot use the lowest form of fossil fuels, for example, gas, as a transition fuel. But how are we going to finance hydrogen? It's not going to be aid. We're tired of aid. I think European wealthy nation taxpayers, you need to be asking your politicians what they've done with your money. $800 billion spent in Africa over the last 15 years on aid. Where are the results? Some people need to lose their jobs. The most beautiful thing about being a politician is that you can make all decisions and you pay no consequences, because if you work in my industry, in a company, you make those kind of decisions, you'll be fired. But we cannot drive a future, an energy future that comes with, we have to wait on aid, we have to beg, we have to come, and we have to talk about grants. I was listening to my sister yesterday from South Africa talking about we need more grants on H2O. That's fine. You need startup capital. You need a head start. You need to really drive this. What are we going to do with that new energy future? The heavy industries, are we going to remake it by not giving women the chance? We still live in a continent and an industry where women are still the last hired and the first fired. How are we discussing that? Is it just going to be that new energy future that we're looking at and we're saying, yes, we're going to drive these heavy industries, but the women are still going to be held back in a continent where 54% are going to be women, people who need burdens and barriers lifted, people who've been left on the roadside. It's not our addiction to fossil fuels. Don't get me wrong, the fossil fuels has not been the best for Africa. I know he's going to put that on Twitter, then I'm going to get in trouble. But the truth of the matter, they have. I mean, yesterday we just had a big conviction in the United States, and in the United Kingdom, Glencoe. Some of the biggest corruption you've ever seen in the world. We need to change that. But it's not enough for the EU, for example, to say your taxonomy on gas has changed and working on that taxonomy on gas, but then block funding. We have never faced the kind of funding restrictions on financing than we have now, even on gas. I could understand when you talk about coal, but when you talk about gas and you say there's nothing for you, get out, and then if you talk about solar and wind, well, we'll give you aid. No, it's not enough. People don't want to be beggars. A man can't ride your back unless your back is bent, as Dr. King would say. They want to be able to drive up that future for themselves, that the dignity that they have, because there's dignity in work. So I want to thank you for being here. I got a lot of smart people here. They know so much, but I think I am here to learn. I'm here to share my experience, policies around Africa. Ibrahim, we're looking at going to COP27 in Cairo. One of the key things that in Shamil Sheikh, so he has to correct me. I'll go to Alexandria. One of the key things that we've done with the Energy Chamber is really bring together everybody across Africa to have an African green dialogue, to really define what is green, to really drive that. So Michael, you still owe me my schnitzel and my bratwurst, okay. And whenever you give it, I will take it, but then besser kann ich auch einen Jägermeister haben.
Yeah, thank you, NJ, so much. Thank you for the a kind of insightful keynote speech. Then I think I would go to Ayman because it's also important we start from the heavy industrial organizations. So taking this from the steel industry, so we know globally the steel making and other iron casting and the likes provides a lot of CO2 emission. And we know that the industry is coming up with a lot of innovation. So are there some low carbon technologies that are being put in place? If there are some, can you give us some examples? So maybe from your own point of view as well as your organization point of view. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your introduction. And thank you for the invitation by the FCA and UNIDO. I would like to draw your attention first about the steel industry for some facts or some statistics. The world produces about 1,950 million tons of crude steel in 21 last year. The emission on average from this steel is 1.83 ton per CO2 per 1 ton steel. So the steel industry is very important industry for the economy and society all over the world. The turnover of the steel industry is about $1 trillion annually. The emission from the steel industry is not comparable to the cement, for example, or for the electricity generation, but still it's a place of emitting CO2. The steel is produced by two methods all over the world, through the blast furnace and oxygen converter, and by electric arc furnace. The major production process is the blast furnace and oxygen converter, which takes the iron ore and reduce the oxygen from the iron ore by means of carbon monoxide. So it emits CO2 through the process itself. During the last 10 years, too much research and development in this field of improving or reducing the carbon dioxide emission have been done by the European, by the Chinese and Korean, Japanese, to reduce the carbon emission through the process itself. We have two main route of production, as I told. The second one is the DRI process, which depend on the natural gas to be reformed and cracked to CO and hydrogen. And this process is less emission of CO2. And this process, from our lucky, are used in Africa, in Egypt, the main producer of steel in Africa. They produce 10.3 million tons of steel, ranking number 1 in Africa. And the second is South Africa, producing about 7 million tons of steel, but producing through blast furnace about 57%, and about 43% by electric arc furnace. The electric arc furnace process depends on the recycling of the scrap, and also on the using of DRI. DRI is a abbreviation for direct reduced iron process that use natural gas. We have makes many research, not only us but the European, to replace the CO2, the natural gas, by hydrogen. The hydrogen can reduce the iron ore by taking the oxygen from the iron ore and let the concentrated iron to be used later in electric arc furnace. The most important research done in two companies in Europe, SAB in Sweden and ThyssenKrupp in Germany, to change the natural gas by hydrogen or by green hydrogen. But you know as well, the green hydrogen is too much expensive to be produced because it depends on the process of electrolysis, the dissociation of the water. So it needs too much investment to reduce this expensive process, and still the technology not commercially proven up till now because of this high cost. The second technology is to introduce a biomass and oxygen to the blast furnace, the most production process all over the world. The aiming by 2030 in China to replace a part of the carbon in the blast furnace by oxygen, direct oxygen injection, and by biomass fuel. Also, the blast furnace in Europe, they're trying to introduce green hydrogen to optimize the process by using carbon capture, usage and storage, which is taking the exhaust gases and reuse it to inject through the process itself.
Okay, thank you, Ayman. I think it's also good that you've made mention of possible technology that are being introduced by your company and the steel industry in Africa. So, and because most times we only hear of Europe, America, Australia, so, and I think a lot of technologies are being implemented in different parts of Africa when it comes to steel production. So thank you for this. So we move from steel industry to the cement industry, and because as far as heavy industry is concerned, cement is a key player, and I will direct this to Hazem, so from Egypt. So I think it's also important you give us some experience when it comes to low carbon growth in your organization or in your industry. So we know Egypt produces a lot of cement, especially the Arabian cement company. So give us your insight into this and what is a way to charter to new, or way to accelerate the green transition. So, yeah.
Thank you. At the beginning, I need to thank Unity team for this invitation and to be have. Okay. Thanks for being here in this great event. At the beginning, I need to highlight the importance of cement industry. Cement is the second important product in our life after the water and food. Consequently, we cannot live without cement. Unfortunately, the cement industry represents one of the most important industry which emits carbon dioxide. So I don't recognize, or I cannot mention that it is a problem. We can think that it is a challenge. We have to reduce our emissions and sustain the cement industry and the cement sector because it is an important product in our life. I have to shed lights quickly on the overall process of the cement for the audience to know the process from where we can start and ending by the product. The process of cement started from the raw material, which consists of limestone and the clay and some additives. This limestone, calcium carbonate decomposes into calcium oxide and CO2. This is the first stage from where we can get the CO2. And it represents around from 55 to 60% from the total CO2 emission. This is the first stage. The second stage, we can find 35% of the CO2 emission from the industry came from the fuel combustion inside the cement kilns. So this is the second step. The remaining 10% came from the electrical consumption. So now all of us know exactly the distribution of CO2 emission from the cement industry. Arabian Cement Company started his journey toward green energy and reducing the CO2 emission since 2013 by introducing efficient technologies in the usage of alternative fuel in their cement kilns. Alternative fuel means municipal waste, RDF, refused derivative fuels, agriculture waste like biomass, dried sewage sludge from the sewage treatment plants, and the plastics and industrial waste, and moreover, the shredded tires. All these represent the alternative fuels which can replace the fossil fuels, which is a very important issue. In Arabian Cement Company, we started our journey by introducing the alternative fuel since 2013, and we burned around 780,000 tons of alternative fuel instead of 350,000 tons of fossil fuels. And this consequently saved around 730,000 tons of CO2 only from the usage of alternative fuel. Later on, we merged one of the most important renewable energy sources, which is the solar energy. In our factory, we constructed a solar energy in our factory, producing capacity around 7 megawatt, and it is the first phase. The second phase, which will be at the end of this year, we will start up the commissioning and the erections with another 18 megawatt hour for introducing an important renewable source of energy. Introducing solar energy also saved around 12,000 tons of CO2 since the end of 2019. All these investments cost Arabian Cement Company around $22 million. This capital or these investments have another side of a significant impact on the environment and on the profit margin as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Hazem. I think I'm really glad to hear this story when it comes to the African continent, that a lot of companies are trying to also imbibe the green transition. And it seems we need to tell more of this kind of story, because I've also read so much about the Arabian company. And we'll move to Lafarge, African PLC, and I think they are also doing a lot. And here I have Daniel, the head of geocycles. So he's going to give us the experience about geocycle and what are the lessons to be learned from what they are doing in their cement production. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for the organizer and UNIDO that brought us here. You see, the opportunity to decarbonize the cement industry is huge. And we need to look at the roadmap. I mean, what do we set up? If I will encourage us, if you can go to Old Sim site, you will see, you will even publish the climate report for the whole group internationally this year. But then, let me bring it down to Nigeria, that what exactly are we doing to decarbonize? If I look at the memory lane, because I've been in the industry for 28 years, and the decarbonization today did not start just now. I remember in year 2000, when we merged with Lafarge at that time, where we used to be a British company, Blue Seku, and one of the things we need to do is start changing our standard to allow us, to be able to produce different grade of cement that is using less clinker, less CO2. And without the standard, we cannot move. So to me, I think within Africa, one of the things I felt we are left behind in the past is when the world moves, Africa still remains where they are. And there was no standard to actually move forward. It took us almost 2-3 years at that time, to allow the regulator to change the standard for us to be able to start not just looking at pure clinker to move cement. So to me, in essence, what I'm saying is that if you look at the roadmap we started a long time ago, we're able to change the standard to allow us to incorporate different things. And then thereafter, it then allows us to start looking at, what can we do to reduce CO2? It involves material and the process. So we start from the material side. Instead of just producing one grade of cement, so you will start producing different grade of cement. And different grade of cement allow you to use less clinker. It means if I use less clinker, I'm reducing the CO2. There are a lot of other cementitious material that you can use to do this. So this, we've started from the year 2000 to where we are today, and we are still within the process, to reduce it. The second side, which you talk is about on the energy side. Cement is highly intensive energy demand. And when you look at it, what do we do if we say we throw away fossil fuel? Typically, we all have paper in front of us. Most of these paper ends where? Landfills. Maybe in Europe, America, you already have a system. In Africa, especially where I come from, typical town, big cities, landfills are full because we are not treating waste. Waste is being dumped. So which means we can convert this thing to energy. And we started this also in Lafarge in year 2012 by investing in co-processing system that allows us to co-process waste. And it gives us two actions. We get energy, we're also solving the waste management problem. So in Africa, if we talk just about alternative fuel, I think we are missing the point. We need to look at, you are solving the waste management problem of the society. And we've done a lot of this with biomass from the farmer. In the past, the farmer would just burn the biomass or the processor and emit things in the open here. But today, we're in that space. I was discussing with somebody yesterday. This year, I'm going to pay almost equivalent of $6 million, to be able to get this material between logistics and the material itself. So you can see that we are moving a lot within this space. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel. Thank you. And I think it's a lot of green growth. It's a gradual process. And I think step by step, we pick up the pin. So I will go to NG Ayuk. It's important you can give us some of your role when it comes to the energy sector as far as African continent is concerned. What are the efforts being made by your organization to implement a lot of renewable solutions across different sectors, and in terms of the policy angle and in terms of, let's say, financing and things like that?
I think you just answered the question. It takes two things. My brother here is talking about spending $22 million. I appreciate that, but that's not enough. You're talking about spending 6 million. I appreciate that, but that's not enough. We need to be spending billions. If I have it, I'll give it to you, but but we need to be spending billions. If we are going to really look at getting into that clean energy future, we need to find a way for that. We have a rare opportunity in Africa that we can still leapfrog into that future. But then it takes some big thinking. We are not addicted to fossil fuels, and nobody loves the environment more than we do. But then you need to have policies that drive this. I'm a free markets guy, and I think one of the key things we've done with the chamber is say, listen, these are businesses. We need to incentivize growth. So the only way you're going to incentivize growth is have that big thinking approach, that futuristic thinking, and say, how do I incentivize him that, for example, he can get tax abatements or tax incentives, for example, to spend more money in cutting our already low carbon footprint, but then super driving it. We're not going to get green hydrogen if we cannot afford electrolyzers that are way too expensive, and the technologies are really, really not that available for Africa. We have vast potential for green hydrogen, whether from Niger going right to Senegal, looking at the north of Africa from Egypt to Morocco, or looking at what's going on right now with the Hyphen project in Namibia, or big green hydrogen hubs that you can have around South Africa, and really driving this. But then we have to ask ourselves, from a policy perspective, what are we doing to encourage that? What are we doing to create that enabling environment that's going to be easier to do business, that young people can drive up new technologies and they can get in, they can dream big dreams and think how you're going to have that and really make that come into fruition. But then it's all about money. That's one of the things which we work with Afri-Exim Bank. We putting together what we call the Africa Energy Bank. Some people think you just want to sponsor finance fossil fuels. No. We're going to finance fossil fuels, but we're going to finance a lot. It's actually an energy transition bank, because you got to drive in capital into this. And this is a chance where I'm just a firm believer in young Africans, that these little black boys and black girls that people can see them and say they're rejects, these young women could really drive that. But you need to start having those policies in place. If you don't have those policies in place, and this is where I think companies like this, working with UNIDO and other development agencies, could really look at those best practices and say, how do you drive that? What have been your success model into getting that? If we fail, then we're still there, because Africa is going to be at a big, big risk. And I keep saying this, we're going to have 2 billion people by 2050. 2 billion. And if you don't have those policies in place that attract capital, because capital goes to where it is welcome. So those policies attract capital, then you can take care of those 2 billion. But now you can do it in a cleaner, better. And these heavy industries, I mean, all of you here work in heavy industries. How many people are moving from rural communities in Africa into big urban centers? The urban centers in Africa are choked up. I was in Cairo. Someone told me you had about 22 million people in Cairo. They're opening a whole new big city. Really amazing. Lagos, you know, they don't have the numbers, right? It's between 17 to 25 million. I live in Johannesburg, we're like 5 million. But then if you just go from south, Johannesburg, Lagos to Cairo, big, massive cities. And whether you're looking at Nairobi or Dakar, most of Africa, there's this big urban migration that is, you're going to be needing this heavy industry, cement. They got to build, they got to drive things. And heck, they want to bam bam. They want to chill with the big boys. They want to have parties every evening and everything. So that's going to happen. So you got to put policies so these young people can start moving, but then we can give for business an opportunity to grow. Because if it's tough for business to grow, if it's tough for you to innovate,
if it's tough for you to get stuff on the ground and move that, then we are going to really face it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And yes, I think I will go to Ayman, and I think this will be a quick one. It's a wish. If you are in charge of some kind of governmental programs and you are able to speak to your leaders, what would be your 3 wishes that you feel needs to be done to accelerate green growth transition quickly?
It's a very difficult question to answer. Actually, we need too much investment, like my colleague said, for this area. So for our luck, Africa is not an emitted country by CO2. We have very low emission between all over the world because we haven't too much industries or heavy industries. But in the next 20 to 30 years, as African agenda for 2063, they expected that we have double in industry in this area, and we have less energy resources, electrical energy resources, I mean, like my colleague said. So it is a good opportunity to build new electrical energy, green electrical energy in Africa before we start this revolution of industry in Africa. My wishes, for example, the policies have been put in by European to export our product to Europe. In 2023, we have to report about the direct and indirect carbon emission for our product. In 2026, we have to impose the carbon tax in our product. This will affect, without doubt, about our economy and about our industrial situation and economic situation. So we need to put more spots on Africa continent at all for more projects in Africa and in Egypt. For example, Egypt started with a new cooperation with Siemens to build a new electrical generation with hydrogen. It started a new project in Suez Canal to build a new company for hydrogen, green hydrogen, and for ethanol to retank the ships across the canal. So many efforts are many efforts to catch or to be in the plan of 2050, but we need too much investment in this area. My wish is for my government to push in this way for all the new projects, to put too much investment in this area. This needs, of course, cooperation from the other continent, that they will reuse this later on.
Thank you. So you want more investment and more regulatory framework between Europe and Africa when it comes to the green transition issues. Okay, thank you. Yes, I will go to Hazem. I think you are in the cement industry, and I think it's important you give us your insights, especially your 3 wishes, if you are opportune to speak to those in powers on what needs to be done to accelerate the green transition.
Okay. The important point is the policies. Without policies, there is no commitment. So 2 years ago, the Egyptian government set a policy on the cement industry and the cement companies that all the cement plants, they are obligated to introduce alternative fuel in their process, otherwise their factories will be stopped. And this percentage of usage of alternative fuel is around 10%, although Arabian cement company achieved 25% of thermal substitution rate since 2013. So I found this approach is very, very late. Too late to set this policy 2 years ago. But no problem, we have to start. At this point, till now, there are around 10% of the cement plants in Egypt, they are not introducing alternative fuel. Also, we have a critical point regarding the emissions. Just for info, in Egypt we have around 18 cement factories, and in Africa we have around 178 factories of cement. So in Egypt only we have 10% of the total cement factories in Africa. Focusing in Egypt will be a very, very good approach, and this experience will spread all over Africa. Another point is the awareness. Awareness sessions and awareness events should be done periodically, especially for the decision maker. We have to change the mindset. We need to transfer the knowledge and the experience that reducing emissions save lives. Another thing, the collaboration and the engagement between the government and the private sector. We have to make a competition, a healthy competition between the cement companies, so they have to compete to produce cement with low emission, not to sell the cement. We have two different perspectives. I have to compete with my company to sell, to produce low carbon cement, not the marketing of the cement itself. Another thing, facilitating the importing equipments and tools which is used in the energy solutions and the green solutions. We suffered a lot. Really, we suffered a lot for the importing the equipments and tools to start up a platform for recycling and the shredding facility. It is very, very hard. And last thing, the incentives. We have to encourage the companies and the heavy industries to go green by giving them yearly incentives depending on their yearly achievements. That's all.
Okay, thank you. So you mentioned incentive, you mentioned technology transfer, partnership, which is key to why we are here. I will go to Daniel. I think it's also important you give us your 3 wishes that you feel it's important for us to enhance the green transition in the cement sector.
Thank you very much. I said earlier about standards, so to me, I think that is still key because we still have a lot to do within that space. If I'm going to produce low carbon cement today, definitely we still need to tweak the standard a little bit. So to me, I think I would drive that. The second one is funding for waste management. In Nigeria today, if you look at CO2 just from the perspective of the heavy industry, go to the landfill, you see it's actually worst because we're only dumping, and then it means every time we are releasing greenhouse gas, methane gas every time. Now, about 2000 cement industry was just about maybe 3 million tons. Today, we're about 50 million tons. So which means cement industry can actually be part and parcel of that solution. But the challenge today is that there's no incentive to treat waste. Because even at the citizenry level, we are paying almost next to nothing to collect waste. So which means, we talk about standard producer responsibility maybe in the developed world. It's not just the industry, but in Africa or in my own country, it's even we citizens. Because if I'm paying next to nothing to waste, I cannot expect anything before we start looking at the industry to actually pay more. So if we are able to get funding, to treat waste, cement industry can move quicker to solve problems by decarbonizing their own system and also decarbonizing the society. Because if you decarbonize us and we are still dumping waste, then it means CO2 is huge everywhere. And to us, that's why we look at geocycle from perspective of waste management, not just to look at it from the energy. If you look at it from the waste perspective, it means we have a lot to do. And to us in Lafarge in Nigeria, this is our next step. We are driving, we move from what is easier, biomass, from the industry. Now we are now looking at the municipal waste to be part of this problem. So I would say we need to look for that fund, from the government to put a law or a regulation that make sure that people understand the concept of extended producer responsibility from the people and also from the industry. The third part would be majorly to look at the whole concept of decarbonation in the cement industry. And when I mean at the whole concept, I have the process side. In Nigeria, we don't generate enough power, so almost every cement industry has their own power plant. I mean, so what are we doing within that space? Is there a rule that allows us, to move toward more of renewable? Or, I mean, we talked about gas earlier, to move from diesel. Like my company, maybe in the 90s, we used to run diesel. Today, we've changed most of it to gas. In fact, the last one we are building, we're even looking at putting biomass in one of our plants in the north, to generate power. So, but there needs to be that rule incentives that allow us to move to the next phase. Because if not, it will be difficult to leave what we are doing existing and to move to the next phase. So between government and us, I think there's a lot of things I believe we can do together.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for this. And I think I know we have a lot of people who want to ask questions from the audience. But since we are all here, I think it's important you meet any of the panelists to discuss this in order for us to catch up with the time. And I'm happy to hear all this good news from all these experts from Africa. It's good that a lot of effort is being made and more can still be done. And thank you all for coming. And I hope together we can continue to promote the possibility of enhancing green transition in the heavy industry in Africa and across the world. So thank you all for joining, and we meet in the next phase.
Gentlemen, thank you. Thank you so much. Let me add 2 or 3 words, and especially thank you for pointing out so explicitly what is needed and which steps need to be taken. This was really helpful. We sort of changed our policy a little bit in terms of attendance in all of the events because, as you know, the infection rates are relatively high in this region at the moment in terms of COVID, but we will take these recommendations you have. We have them on tape. We're taking transcripts here, and be sure we'll communicate them as far as we can, because this is the point we need to focus on, and this is also what UNIDO is doing so vigorously in making understood. Hazem, you mentioned that so great. We need awareness. We need to change the mindset of policymakers. That's one of the quotes we want to put out today, if we may. But thank you all for coming. And we have, I just wanted to mention that the largest energy consumer of the region probably in the house, who would be available and interesting to exchange opinions with you. It's a forging company using a lot of natural gas, for example, in a process of decarbonization. So we want to create this cross-continent exchange as well. But at the same time, we have a very, and that, feel free to speak as much as you want, but we have a very interesting session coming up. Here's our moderator on exceptional clean tech leaders over in the library at 10:30, and I would kindly ask everyone to try to be there on time because we have a dense schedule. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. It's an honor you're all here. Thank you.